What is up, everybody? Yes, we can. Welcome into the Chris Wormley Show, brought to you, of course, by yinzercrazy.com, steelcitywheelhouse.com, and the Yinzer Crazy podcast. I am at Mic'd Up Sports 1. You can find me on Twitter, of course. He is at Jordan York Music. And yes, somehow the Pittsburgh Steelers are still in the running for a playoff spot as we enter Week 18. We're going to get into Ben Roethlisberger and, of course, the Steelers' big win on Monday night with Chris Wormley here on the Chris Wormley Show in just a few minutes. But first, Jordan, I want to talk about this new sports-themed album that you have coming out that, of course, is going to take Pittsburgh by storm.
Yeah, so I teamed up with my producer, Gallo, and we came up with, 5 songs for each sports team. The fifth song being for the Yinzer Crazy, the #1 Pittsburgh sports podcast in all of the land. And we have a lot of exciting things this year, new athletes, new interviews, new shows, new music albums. So just kind of going to bring it all together and just, make some Yinzers happy.
Yeah, I want to thank our sponsors, Steel City Wheelhouse over at steelcitywheelhouse.com. I know you were talking about getting a remote starter, maybe getting some tinted windows. Listen, they have everything. It's wintertime in Pittsburgh. It's getting cold. What the heck are you waiting for? Head over to Steel City Wheelhouse, 2 locations. Check them out, steelcitywheelhouse.com. And Jordan, I'm emotional about Steel City Wheelhouse, but it's easy to be emotional about Big Ben Roethlisberger. His last game at Heinz Field this past Monday. Are you crying right now? Do I see some tears running down your eyes?
Listen, man, I was crying last night. Just growing up, I pretty much watched. I was young for Neil O'Donnell. Cordell was, the Cordell Maddox era. I was there for, but rather than that, Ben has been my QB throughout my whole life, and he's awesome, man. We're gonna miss him, but I think that he went out basically saying, "I own Cleveland," and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I was emotional about it too. There were some people giving me guff on Twitter. He's just a quarterback. He's just a human. How can you feel this way about him? Well, you're right. I was 13, 14 years old. We watched him get drafted at your parents' house. And ever since then, he's really all I've known. And when you work in this industry, you develop a love and passion for sports. Yeah. There are individuals who create that, right? And help, breed that. And Ben Roethlisberger was that for me. So in a sense, he has driven me to this passion, and certainly us as well. All right, let's talk about it all with a guy who knows Ben pretty well. He plays on the same damn team as him. He's been out the last 2 weeks, but is excited to come back. We're going to get his take on all things Steelers. It's Chris Wormley. Right here, Big Worm on the Chris Wormley Show. A Yinzer Crazy exclusive. Thanks so much for joining us for another week. Listen, we're getting a little sad. Of course, the season is winding down, which naturally means that the Chris Wormley Show is winding down. But we're fortunate, of course, to have a few more weeks with Chris and still holding out hope that we have a playoff show with Big Worm as well. First and foremost, Chris, I know obviously not ideal missing the last 2 games, but how you doing?
Doing well. Excited to get back with the team tomorrow. I'm excited to play one last game for the regular season, and still holding on to those chances for the playoffs. So hopes are high. It's been a weird couple weeks in the Wormley household, but hopes are high, spirits are high now, and I'm excited for this last week of the regular season.
Yeah. So for the second straight week, the Steelers were Wormless. I know it was tough watching from home, but where are you at, as far as the groin injury and, with everything else you have going on?
Yeah, having 2 weeks of kind of downtime with this groin injury has helped out a lot, honestly. Groin's feeling great. I'm excited to get back to practice tomorrow with the guys. Had COVID, tested positive on, I think it was Friday morning. So with the new CDC guidelines, 5 days after your initial positive test and, asymptomatic, I can get back with the team, which I'm really excited about. So, yeah, I'm feeling good, feeling healthy, and getting a little restless being in the basement ordering $25 Uber Eats sandwiches.
Yeah, I hear you on that, man. They definitely reel you in with that.
Yeah.
But obviously a big win last night. The playoff hopes are still alive. I know that, some things have to happen. What are your thoughts on that game? Obviously, if it was Ben's last game, and we'll get into that, but what were your thoughts rather than wishing that you were out there with your team?
Yeah, obviously wanted to be out there with the team. They had defensive line had 9 sacks, which I definitely wanted to be a part of. They were feasting on that O-line last night. Obviously, TJ doing TJ things, but it was just another complete team game. And I said this maybe a couple of weeks ago or last week that in order for us to win, we got to run the ball. We got to stop the ball. Stop the ball from being run. We held Nick Chubb to I think 68 yards again, something like that, and we created turnovers. We got those sacks, obviously, and let Ben go to work. And obviously Najee and that O-line were hitting 10, 20-yard runs every quarter, which was amazing. So it was fun to be able to get a win. Obviously, we needed it to stay in the playoffs, and it's always nice to beat the Browns and beat a team from Ohio.
No question about that. And obviously it was a big night for Big Ben, Chris. His last game ever at Heinz Field. Can you share a story? I know it's been only 2 years with you, with Ben as a Steeler, but can you share a story maybe the public hasn't seen, something behind the scenes maybe that was one of your favorite Ben moments, whether it's practice, in the locker room, something of that nature?
I don't know about anything over the last couple of years, but I'll give you a story. I grew up a Steeler fan. I've said it a bunch of times on the show. Mm-hmm. Ben's from about 40 minutes south of where I'm from in Northwest Ohio. So being a kid growing up, being a Steeler fan, knowing somebody that was only 40 minutes away from me, I was a massive Ben Roethlisberger fan. I was a huge Steeler fan. When I was in Little League football, I would get $20 every touchdown that I scored. And the money that I saved up, one of the years I bought a Ben Roethlisberger jersey. And that was the first jersey I ever bought. And then I got a Palomalo jersey. So to be able to be a teammate of this guy's for only 2 years, but to be able to follow this guy's career for 18 years growing up, as a 9-10-year-old when he first started playing is something that's pretty special to me in my heart as a kid. And I know that the city of Pittsburgh, and not only just Pittsburgh, but the country and the NFL and the league in general is going to miss him and the talents that he brought each Sunday.
Wow. First jersey. That is incredible stuff. Sounds familiar. I was the same. I think it was an 11 or 12-year-old, and I opened a Christmas present from my mom, and before you know it, I still have it. It smells of like icy light and nacho cheese. Because those things are hard to wash and those stenches are hard to get out. But that is awesome. I also want to ask you something that I was thinking about earlier this week, and you might not be able to answer it to a T, but when you were in Baltimore, obviously you played Big Ben in the Steelers a few times. What was the game plan like? What was the conversation in the locker room at that time or in team meetings that were like, all right, I have to go against Big Ben. How do I prepare for him?
Yeah, I mean, that was back when Le'Veon and AB were still there. My first couple of years, I'm like, man, this is probably the best trio in the league. So my first year for sure, we lost both of those games. And I just remember the biggest thing our D coordinator would tell us was you got to tackle Ben high. You can't wrap him around the legs because he'll just shake you off and find somebody down the field. So if you're going to try and sack him, you got to go high. You got to bring more than one person at him, because of not only his athleticism, but just of how big of a guy he is. And you definitely saw that in those 18 years that he was a quarterback, the way he could move. Obviously not the last couple of years, but those first 10, 12, 13 years he was in the league, he was one that could scramble around and make plays happen. And I think our biggest thing was just tackle him high.
Definitely. So you have one game left against your former team, the Ravens. What is your initial thoughts, going into this game?
Yeah, it's my first time back in Baltimore since I got traded and we moved. So I'm excited for that opportunity to go back to M&T Bank Stadium where it all kind of started for me in my career. Excited to go up against some guys that I played against and played with. But this game is really just about getting to the playoffs. Obviously, we got to have a couple other things shake our way, but it's going to start with us getting a win against Baltimore. They've lost 6 in a row, which is hard to believe. I know they're going to be hungry to end on a high note for the season, and potentially make the playoffs. But that's our goal as well. So it's going to be a hostile environment. I'm excited. I'm hoping Lamar plays just because that challenge is always fun, and I'm looking to have another game like I had a couple weeks ago against him.
Definitely. So Baltimore prides themselves on running the ball. On Monday night, obviously you weren't out there, but your team, was able to stop that. How do you prepare, for this attack?
Yeah, I think Lamar and even Huntley, they create an extra gap, an extra runner when they're in the backfield, and when we have to prepare for that, it's tough. They're probably one of the only teams that kind of run that style of offense, and although we see them twice a year, it's still going to be a challenge for us to fill the gaps, come downhill, and make the plays. But what we saw last night with Chubb running in the backfield, it was fun to watch on the couch. The reporters during the game were talking about how we're the last, we have the worst rushing defense, and I heard it 3 or 4 times, and it pissed me off to hear that be on the couch. But I think the boys answered the bell, and I'm excited to continue that against Baltimore.
Let's talk about some of those boys. You must have felt like a proud father a little bit watching some of the youngsters get after it. Talk a little bit about Isaiah Loudermilk's performance, Montravius Adams, a guy that you mentioned to us that you knew in the past. Henry Mondo had a good game as well. I think your tweet read, and it's, I think, at Chris_Wormley43, if you're not following him, something along the lines of the defensive line really pushed the Browns' offensive line around. So
I think I said destroyed, but yeah, it's.
Oh, okay. That hikes it up a bit. Just like Uber Eats prices, I respect it. Tell us about your guys.
No, obviously it starts with Cam, and he's having a phenomenal All-Pro career type year. And when a guy's playing like that in the middle, everyone else around them benefits. Obviously, TJ. I'm still waiting for the 99 Madden rating for him to come. Obviously, I think he should get Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to break the sack record, and I'm excited to see that. And obviously, Loudermilk's a rookie, but he has really made some really big strides, especially his last 2 weeks, taking the bulk of the reps. He's going to be a really good player in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and I'm excited to see him grow. Obviously, Montravius has been in the league for a while and is finally getting I think his dues as a nose, a big, strong, athletic nose that can do what he does. You've seen him in this past week. He played really well. And obviously Hank too, Mondu. He's the kind of guy that kind of gets those scrap reps here and there, but when he's in there, he plays really well. He's a fighter, and he's always productive when he's in there too. So it's a next man up mentality, and that's how it's been all year. Obviously with Tyson and Tuitt out. And then me these last couple of weeks. So those guys work their butts off, and it's fun to see them reap the rewards of their hard work.
We had Hank Mondu on earlier this summer, and he's a bit of a quiet guy, but we got him to open up a little bit, show some personality. So that was a lot of fun, and obviously very happy for his success, no question about it. All right, let's play everybody's favorite game. And no, I'm not talking about Jumanji or Chutes and Ladders or anything of that nature. And I'm going to switch it up again because once more, we've done a Baltimore Ravens Worm Association. Previously, you talked about your relationships with some of the guys, which, obviously still remain. So I'm going to do an all Steelers edition of Worm Association in honor of Ben Roethlisberger. And this isn't even going to really be current Steelers, Chris. I want to talk about maybe some of those other guys you watched growing up. And some staff members as well. So the first one I'm going to start with, Jordan, I want you to start off by showing Worm that shirt you've got on there. That thing is a classic.
That's Mike T. Looks like maybe year 1 or 2 in the league. I don't know, man. He's looking young in that picture.
That's what I said. Man. Sharpie's looking fresh.
The hairline is solid. And I think that's a classic. So I'm going to start with that. Give me a Worm Association. Head coach Mike Tomlin.
I mean, he has another year of not going having a losing record, which I think speaks for itself. The things that he has done with the Steelers, the things he's done as an assistant, kind of the face of African-American head coaches in the league for 15 years now, I think speaks volumes. But he's just one of those guys that you want to play for. I knew that he was a good coach, obviously being a fan of the team, playing against him for those 3 years. But when I got in the team rooms with him in the locker room, he really can make a big impact. And I think not just his little sayings here and there, but just the way he leads a team, I think is top tier.
My shirt isn't as cool as Jordan's, but I think it's still pretty cool, and it gives me a good next transition into your defensive coordinator. I want to know a little bit about your thoughts on Keith Butler.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think played in the league for 10 years. So he's not only a coach with a defensive mind, but he knows the game. He knows what it takes to play at a high level. When you play for 10 years, you're no slouch. So I think he has a great perspective when it comes to how football should be played and how he wants it to be played.
Let's move on to some of the former Steelers that I mentioned. How about James Harrison?
Yeah. At one point, I think he was probably the most feared guy in the league. Not because he was a dirty player, not because he was a bad guy or a mean person, but just the way he played play after play. Obviously, he's a great player. Obviously, he won Defensive Player of the Year. He had that 3-yard interception in the Super Bowl. So his play speaks for himself. But just the intensity that he brought week in and week out was second to none.
I think another guy that you could characterize using all of the phrases and words that you just used is former wide receiver Heinz Ward. I'm sure you watched him growing up as well. Tell me about your thoughts on Heinz.
Yeah, he was probably one of the toughest receivers, in the league when it comes to blocking, when it comes to going over the middle and catching balls across the middle. When you have guys like Ray Lewis, Ed Reed coming at you twice a year, those matchups were always really, really fun to watch as a kid growing up. But he's definitely an all-time Steeler.
Let's talk about a guy that has impacted your life greatly. The 43 is in your Twitter handle. Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, that was my favorite player growing up. That's the reason why I wore 43 in elementary school. That's why I wore 43 at Michigan in college. So yeah, he has a special place in my heart. Obviously, a Hall of Famer. I've never played safety before, but just the way that he played the game, I have so much respect for him. And when you have a guy like that you can kind of look up to, I think you're going in the right direction. And an all-time Steeler, an all-time NFL player, an all-time safety. And obviously the hair makes him really, really cool too.
Nice call. Still doing Head and Shoulders commercials out there. Man, we're really giving some free plugs out there tonight on the Chris Wormley Show. Shout out Head and Shoulders. They keep everybody fresh, just like Mike Tomlin on Jordan's shirt there. All right, we're going to wrap up on a sour note, but we have to do it, Worm. I was there. It was quite the spectacle at the Orange Bowl. But obviously, if you were a Michigan fan or diehard or alum, probably didn't feel the same way. It was a tough game. Started slow, never really found it, and Georgia just proved to obviously be the better team. I know I just gave some observations, but I want to ask you about yours.
Yeah, I think I had really high hopes going into the game. We talked about it before. I thought they could keep up with Georgia. I wasn't too impressed with Georgia's offense until I saw them put 34 points or whatever it was up against 36 points up against our defense. They really, really eliminated Aiden Hutchinson with a lot of chip blocking, max protections that a lot of teams hadn't done in the past, which was surprising that they hadn't figured it out, other teams. And I think Georgia had obviously 3-4 weeks to come up with a great game plan for that. I think Michigan's O-line really struggled against a really big, physical, strong Georgia defense and up front seven. And they just made more plays and converted when needed to. Georgia did. And I think it's going to be a really good, really, really fun national championship game on Monday. But you can't let that game take away from what Michigan accomplished this year. They go from unranked to the number 2 team in the country, beat Ohio State handedly. beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship handedly. So I'm still so proud of those guys, and I know every true Michigan fan is really excited for the future, excited for Harbaugh, excited for the players coming back and what they accomplished this year.
Yeah, only one team at the end of the day is generally satisfied, and I think that perspective it holds true. That was the next question I was going to ask you is how proud are you of them still? And you already answered it. No question about that. The good news, the Steelers are still in contention to be that last team standing. Of course, things have to break your way, but I've seen crazier things happen. And obviously for you guys, it starts with beating the Ravens.
Yep.
And Mike Tomlin,
Yes,
coaching you guys up. Yes, we can is the motto for this
Go
week.
Jags.
Yeah, go
Worm's
Jags.
going to be back on the field, and I think if Ben Roethlisberger was the first jersey you ever had, if things go well, maybe Trevor Lawrence is the next jersey you'll have.
If the Jags win and we win, I will buy a Trevor Lawrence jersey. I promise you that.
There you have it.
You heard it here first on the Chris Wormley Show.
Yes, sir.
Chris, we can't wait for your return. We've missed you out there. The team has obviously as well. So play well, and we'll wrap it all up next week. But hopefully not. Hopefully it's a playoff show.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, fellas. Happy New Year.
Later, man.
Crazy. I know yins are crazy, but so am I. Number one sports site in the burg, let me show you why. The latest stories in unbeatable podcast with your favorite athletes. You know you can't pause that. Super Bowl, World Series, Stanley Cup champ.